The storm rolled in like an unstoppable tide, dark clouds twisting with an unnatural fury. Winds howled through the skeletal remains of a once thriving town, rattling loose shingles and battering windows. The first drops of rain struck like bullets, cold and sharp against the abandoned streets. Dr. Elias Carter tightened his grip on the railing of the weather observatory, staring into the chaotic sky. The storm had been predicted, but this was something else. The pressure fluctuations were impossible, the electrical interference beyond explanation. Lightning forked in the distance, illuminating jagged shadows that moved where nothing should. His fingers danced over the keyboard, pulling up satellite readings, but every data stream returned nonsense. Static filled the radio bands, and the internet flickered, refusing to load. He exhaled sharply. "Come on," he muttered, adjusting his headset. One clear signal. Behind him, Maya Rodriguez, his lead technician, cursed under her breath. "Everything's fried. Even backup systems are glitching." "Keep trying," Elias said, not taking his eyes off the screen. "This isn't just a storm. There's a pattern in the interference. Something, is sending a signal." Maya shot him a look. "You think this is intentional?" He didn't answer. The numbers spoke for themselves. The electromagnetic anomalies were rhythmic, too structured to be random. It was a message, hidden within the storm itself. The emergency sirens blared across town, their mechanical wail barely cutting through the wind's rage. In the distance, military trucks rumbled toward the outskirts, their headlights barely visible through the torrential downpour. Elias turned to Maya. "Get me a direct line to Central Command." She hesitated. "You really think they'll listen to us?" "They have to." Minutes later, a crackling voice broke through the static. "Observatory, this is Command. What's your report?" "This storm isn't natural," Elias said. "We're detecting an artificial signal embedded in the interference. It's complex, layered, like an encrypted transmission." A pause. "Then, repeat that." "It's not just weather," he pressed. "It's an event." Before Command could respond, the power cut out. For a heartbeat, silence. Then the world outside erupted. A blast of light split the sky, blinding even through the reinforced windows. The wind howled with new intensity, and the observatory trembled under the force. Elias grabbed Maya's arm and pulled her back just as the mainframe monitors exploded in a shower of sparks. The ground rumbled beneath their feet. Then the town's emergency sirens stopped. Not faded. Stopped. The sudden absence of sound was worse than the noise itself. Elias's pulse pounded in his ears. He turned to Maya, breathless. "Tell me you heard that." She nodded, eyes wide. "Everything just died." A distant boom echoed through the valley. Something was coming. They raced to the rooftop observation deck. The storm clouds churned, but now something moved within them. A massive shape, indistinct against the darkness, shifting like a living shadow. Lightning flickered, illuminating the outline of something impossibly large descending through the storm. The first impact tremor shook the ground as a massive structure. No, a vessel, pierced through the clouds, its surface pulsing with veins of eerie blue light. Smaller shapes detached from it, descending like falling stars toward the earth below. Maya whispered, "We're not alone." Elias's breath came shallow. His mind screamed for logic, but there was none. The storm had concealed their arrival. The world had changed in an instant. And humanity was no longer the only one watching the sky. Elias gripped the railing as another tremor rippled through the ground. The vessel, impossibly vast, hovered in defiance of gravity, its hull shifting like liquid metal under the assault of the storm's winds. Smaller crafts detached, sleek and silent, cutting through the rain like falling knives. They landed without fanfare, the earth swallowing their weight with an eerie stillness. From the rooftop, he could see the military convoy at the town's edge grinding to a halt. The soldiers, their rigid formation betraying unease, raised their weapons toward the descending forms. No orders were shouted, no warning given. Everyone understood. Whatever had come was not of this world. Maya exhaled sharply beside him. "They're waiting." Elias followed her gaze. The figures emerging from the smaller crafts moved with unnatural precision. Their bodies, tall and sinewy, shimmered in the rain, neither metal nor flesh but something between. They advanced without hesitation, their elongated limbs carrying them forward in an eerie, soundless march. The first shot rang out. A single muzzle flashed from the human line. The bullet struck one of the creatures in the chest, and ricocheted harmlessly. The being didn't flinch. It merely turned its head toward the shooter, then raised an arm. A pulse of energy rippled outward. The soldier convulsed and collapsed, his body eerily intact, his rifle dropping into the mud with a lifeless thud. Then the others attacked. The soldiers opened fire, the air thick with gunpowder and flashing muzzle bursts. But the creatures moved like mist, shifting, adapting. Their bodies bent in ways that defied anatomy, avoiding bullets with unnatural fluidity. The resistance was over before it had begun. Elias clenched his fists, his mind racing. This wasn't an invasion. It was an assessment. The aliens hadn't attacked first. They had waited. "We need to get down there," he said. Maya tore her gaze from the battlefield. "Are you insane? They'll kill us." "They haven't killed anyone," he countered. "Not directly. That soldier, he's not dead. Look." Below, the fallen man stirred. He gasped for breath, disoriented but unharmed. His rifle, however, lay smoldering beside him, its structure warped beyond recognition. They weren't neutralizing people. They were neutralizing weapons. A deafening crack split the air as one of the military's armored vehicles fired a shell. The explosion illuminated the darkened streets, then vanished. The detonation froze, suspended mid-air, before collapsing inward on itself, snuffed out as if it had never existed. Elias felt his stomach twist. These beings were beyond anything humanity had prepared for. Their technology didn't just surpass human weaponry, it rendered it irrelevant. From below, a new presence emerged. Taller than the others, this being moved with deliberate purpose, its body encased in an intricate lattice of shifting metallic plates. It paused at the fallen soldier, studying him. Then, in a slow, almost ceremonial motion, it turned its head toward the observatory. Its gaze locked onto Elias. He couldn't breathe. The connection was immediate, invasive, like a thought pressed directly into his skull. His mind pulsed with something vast and ancient. The storm, the interference, the unreadable patterns, it was all them. This was not an attack. It was a message. Then came the whisper. Not words, but intent. Not sound, but meaning. "Prove yourselves." The connection severed as suddenly as it had begun. The alien leader turned away, and just like that, the invaders stopped. The soldiers, still poised for combat, hesitated as their enemies simply withdrew, walking back toward their crafts. The storm above began to shift, its fury lessening, the winds easing. Maya grabbed Elias's arm. "What just happened?" He swallowed hard. I think we're being tested." Below, the alien crafts lifted from the ground, hovering, waiting. The storm still loomed overhead, but now it felt different. Less like a weapon. More like a countdown. Elias had never known silence to feel so heavy. The storm lingered above, its fury restrained but not forgotten. The alien vessels remained, hovering just above the town's outskirts, neither advancing nor retreating. It was as if they were waiting for something, waiting for a response. Maya paced beside him, her boots kicking up wet gravel. "We need to get out of here. Before they change their minds." Elias barely heard her. His mind was still reeling from the connection, from the presence that had invaded his thoughts. It hadn't been hostile. It had been expectant. The words, or whatever passed for words, still echoed in his head, "Prove yourselves." Prove what? That they could fight? That they could surrender? That they could understand? Down below, the military was regrouping. Orders were being barked, wounded were being dragged to safety, but no one fired another shot. It was clear now that their weapons were useless. Fear and confusion rippled through the ranks. These men had trained for war, but this wasn't a war. This was something else entirely. Maya stopped pacing. Elias. Something in her tone pulled him back to reality. He followed her gaze. The alien leader was still there, standing at the center of the battlefield, its form shifting subtly with the dim light. It raised one arm, palm open, and a single sphere of pulsing blue energy emerged from its hand. It floated upward, rising until it was level with Elias's chest. Then, with an eerie slowness, it began to drift toward him. The soldiers tensed, their hands twitching toward their useless rifles. But the being did not move aggressively. It merely watched. The sphere stopped inches from Elias's face. Maya inhaled sharply. "Don't touch it." Elias wasn't sure he had a choice. He could feel something radiating from it, not heat, not light, but intent. The same presence that had invaded his mind was in this thing, focused, condensed. It wanted him to take it. He extended his hand. The moment his fingers brushed the surface, the world around him shifted. The observatory, the town, the storm, it all blurred into insignificance. He was nowhere and everywhere. He saw cities rising from landscapes he had never known, skies filled with shapes too vast to comprehend. He saw wars fought in silence, without weapons, without blood, conflicts of thought, of will. He felt time stretch and contract, moments slipping through his fingers like water. Then he saw Earth, not just as it was now, but as it had been. The rise of civilizations, the endless cycles of conflict and discovery, the delicate balance between destruction and progress. The weight of humanity's choices pressed against him, an unspoken question taking shape in the void. "Are you ready?" The visions shattered. Elias staggered, the world slamming back into focus. His breath came in ragged gasps. The sphere had vanished. The alien leader was still watching. Maya grabbed his arm. "What the hell just happened?" Elias looked at her, then at the silent forms beyond. He understood now. They weren't here to conquer. They weren't even here to make first contact. They were here to decide if humanity deserved to take its next step. And the test had already begun. Elias steadied himself, his pulse still hammering in his ears. The weight of what he had seen, of what had been shown to him, pressed against his chest like a vice. The alien leader remained motionless, its unreadable gaze fixed upon him, waiting for a response he didn't know how to give. Maya's grip on his arm tightened. "Tell me you understand what's happening." He swallowed hard. I think they're judging us." A crackle of radio static broke the moment. General Laura Hayes's voice cut through the interference, sharp and steady. "Dr. Carter, do you copy?" Elias fumbled for his radio. "I'm here. We're receiving strange transmissions from your location. Command is scrambling to make sense of it." A pause. What the hell is going on? How could he even begin to explain? That in the last few minutes, he had seen visions of civilizations far beyond their comprehension? That an intelligence older than humanity itself had weighed them against the balance of the universe and found them uncertain? "They're testing us," he said finally. "And we don't have much time." Another tremor rippled through the ground, subtle but unmistakable. The storm overhead began shifting again, tendrils of lightning arcing in slow, deliberate patterns. It wasn't random. It was language. A final question. The alien leader turned, raising both arms. The others followed suit. For the first time, they spoke, not in words, but in resonance, a pulse of thought that vibrated through Elias's very bones. The wind stilled. The silence that followed was absolute. Maya took a step back. "Elias, what are they asking?" He exhaled. "They're offering a choice. It had been there all along. The test wasn't about war or peace. It wasn't about technology or power. It was about potential. The storm above was no mere weather anomaly. It was something far greater, a force of renewal, of change. In one direction lay destruction, a reset, a purge that would reduce humanity to whispers in the dust. In the other lay ascension, a path forward, but one that demanded something more than survival. It demanded understanding. The military below remained locked in place, soldiers still gripping weapons that no longer mattered. General Hayes's voice came through the radio again, quieter this time. What happens if we fail? Elias already knew the answer. He took a slow step forward. The alien leader lowered its arms, its form shifting as if acknowledging his intent. We don't fight, Elias said. His voice was steady now. We don't resist. We accept. Maya stared at him. You're saying we surrender? No, he met her gaze. I'm saying we evolve. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, the sky cracked with a brilliant surge of light. The storm no longer raged, it breathed, pulsing with something neither natural nor artificial. It was waiting. Elias closed his eyes. And in that final moment, he made the choice. The dawn was coming.